In the quiet, sun-scorched village of Africa, where the earth wore a red robe of dust and even the air sighed with hardship, lived a young woman named Elizabeth. She was only 22, but her eyes were old, etched with sorrow, sacrifice, and silent prayers. Since her mother's passing 5 years ago, Elizabeth's world had grown colder, harsher. Her father, Papa Thomas, once a respected yam farmer known for his warm laughter and generous hands, had turned into something else, a man buried in the bottle and married to bitterness. He had taken a new wife, Madame Grace, whose heart seemed carved from stone. She despised Elizabeth with every fibre of her being. Day after day, the poor girl was treated worse than the goats they reared, cooking over smoky firewood, fetching water from the far stream, farming from first light till moonrise, and still sleeping hungry on a ragged mat near the kitchen hearth. The villagers whispered. Everyone saw her pain, her frail frame moving like a shadow, her clothes hanging loose from overuse, but fear kept their lips sealed. No one dared cross Papa Thomas. Madness danced in his eyes, and his cane answered faster than his words. Then came Henry. He was a young man from the city, not one of loud wealth or proud appearance. His shirt was faded, his slippers worn out, but his eyes, they were sharp and knowing. He had been working on Papa Thomas' farm for over 3 moons. He slashed bush, planted cassava, and carried heavy baskets on his back from dawn till dusk. But payment never came. Next week, after market day, come tomorrow, I will settle you. Empty promises, every one. One blazing afternoon, the harmattan breeze dry in the air, Henry wiped sweat from his brow and walked into Papa Thomas' compound, weary and fed up. Sir, Abig, I need my money today, he said, voice low but firm. Papa Thomas scratched his grey head, eyes shifting like a cunning hyena. His glance landed on Elizabeth, bent over a broom, her feet bare, her expression hollow. A wicked grin twisted his lips. You want money? He asked. Yes, sir. I have worked 3 full moons, Henry replied. Fine. Thomas chuckled darkly. Take her, he pointed at Elizabeth. That's your payment. My daughter. Useless girl. Henry blinked. Take. Who? Elizabeth's hand froze mid-sweep. Her mouth trembled. Daddy. Please. No. Shut up, thundered Thomas. You should be thanking your Kai. Someone wants you. Madame Grace folded her arms, smiling like a serpent. Let her go. One less beggar to feed. Elizabeth collapsed to her knees, her voice breaking with sobs. She begged. She cried. But the gods in that house were deaf. Henry looked at her, dirty, thin, tired, but beneath all that, something in her spirit called to him. She was beautiful, not just by face. Her suffering had carved something deep, something royal. She's beautiful, he whispered. What did you say? Thomas snapped. Henry stood straighter. I'll take her. And that's how Elizabeth's story turned. No ceremony, no goodbyes, just tears, a black nylon bag stuffed with her few belongings, and her little half-brother Sam, peeking from behind the mud kitchen, silently crying and waving. They boarded a rickety old bus that coughed and rattled all the way to the city. Elizabeth clutched her bag, eyes fixed on the dusty road outside. She didn't know if she was free or just sold into another kind of slavery. But quietly, her soul whispered, Lord, if this is not my end, please don't let this man be wicked like my father. Let there be peace, even just a little. Henry was quiet, deep in thought. Every now and then, he stole glances at her, sighing. She looked so small, so worn. Eventually, they reached the city, a world of roaring keek, sky-reaching buildings, and hurried feet. Elizabeth had never seen such noise and light. Her feet itched from the unfamiliar pavements. Henry paid a tricycle rider and led her into a calm estate on the city's edge. They stopped at a tall black gate. Henry knocked. A security guard opened, nodding in recognition. The compound beyond the gate took Elizabeth's breath. The lawn was green and clipped, flowers blooming along tiled walkways, and a small fountain whispered in the corner. But Henry didn't take her into the main house. They passed it and stopped at a neat back building, the boys' quarters, 1 bedroom, small kitchen, bathroom. Henry said, smiling, it's not much, but it's safe. I live here. Elizabeth blinked. A clean roof, a real bed, for walls that didn't shiver in the wind. I got a job last week. Security, Henry added. The woman in the main house, she gave me this place for free. She must be kind, Elizabeth said softly. She is. Elizabeth looked around, tears swimming in her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a prisoner. If this is what destiny looks like, she whispered, then maybe I'm ready. Are you okay with it? Henry asked. She nodded. I've not felt this kind of peace in a long, long time. 2 days later, she woke up to the smell of eggs frying and the sound of gospel music playing softly in the background. The golden sun filtered through the window, casting warmth on the clean sheets. No insults, no shouting, no hunger, just peace. In the kitchen, Henry was turning dodo in a pan. Good morning, she said. Morning, Elizabeth. I made breakfast, he said with a grin. Thank you. I slept like a baby. After eating, he handed her a gown. Wear this. I want you to meet someone. Who? She asked, curious but nervous. just someone kind. You'll see. She dressed, hair brushed, heart pounding. They walked to the main house. The front door opened, and there stood a graceful woman in her 50s, regal in her ankara, her eyes warm like sun after rain. "Good morning, Ma," Henry said. "Morning, Henry. And who is this gem?" "My wife, Elizabeth." The woman raised her brows, then smiled. "Ah, so this is the wife you told me about. Beautiful. Come inside, my dear." Elizabeth stepped into the house and gasped. It was like entering a world she only saw in films. White furniture, chandeliers, calm, welcome. "My dear, call me Mrs. Jacob. If you need anything, let me know. This home is big enough for peace." Elizabeth nodded, barely whispering, "Thank you, Ma." Later that evening, back in the boys' quarters, Henry was fixing a broken wardrobe handle. Elizabeth sat quietly, watching him, thoughts dancing in her mind. "Henry," she called softly. "Yes?" She sighed. "When my father gave me to you, I felt like trash. I thought you'd treat me the same, but you didn't. You gave me space, respect, peace. You even cooked for me." Tears slipped from her eyes. She wiped them quickly. "Thank you, Henry. I don't regret coming here anymore. Maybe this was God's plan." Henry sat beside her, took her hand gently. "I would never hurt you, Elizabeth. That's not the kind of man I want to be." He paused. "You know, I liked you since the first day I saw you on the farm, but I was afraid to talk to your father. I had nothing." She looked at him, eyes wide. "But when he told me to take you instead of my money, I was shocked. Yet somehow, I was happy. It felt like a door opened." She lowered her head. "I don't love you yet, Henry. I know, and I'm not rushing you, but I like how you make me feel like I matter, like I'm not a mistake." He smiled. "That's because you're a queen. You've just been hidden in the wrong palace." She laughed, a real laugh, small, soft, free. That night, a seed was planted. Not yet love, but something deeper. Trust, respect, peace. A month later, Elizabeth had found new joy. She cooked every day. She even started writing recipes in a small book. She helped in the compound, her confidence blooming. Then one sunny afternoon, while helping Mrs. Jacob unpack groceries, the woman called her gently. "Elizabeth, come and sit with me." She obeyed. "I've been watching you. Your heart is pure. You are humble. You are a rare gem." Elizabeth blushed. "My cook traveled abroad," Mrs. Jacob continued. "Now I need someone I can trust, and my spirit tells me you are the right one." Elizabeth's mouth fell open, her eyes glistening as tears welled up. "Ah, Ma, thank you so much. You're so kind. God will bless you richly." "I don't even know what to say." Mrs. Jacob smiled warmly and gently patted Elizabeth's hand. "You deserve it, my dear. You're a good girl." Still shaking with joy, Elizabeth wiped her eyes quickly. "Ma, can I tell you something?" "Of course, my child," Mrs. Jacob replied, her tone full of motherly curiosity. "I've been searching for a way to earn money, not just for clothes or anything flashy. I want to go back to school," Elizabeth said, her voice trembling with earnest hope. "I want to further my education, go to university." Mrs. Jacob's face lit up. "You want to go to university?" "Yes, Ma," Elizabeth nodded eagerly. "I had to stop after secondary school because of family problems, but I've always loved learning. I still read books when I can. I really want to go back." Mrs. Jacob reached over and embraced her. "My child, I love education. And I love girls who want more for themselves. That is a beautiful dream, and I'm proud of you." Elizabeth's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ma. Thank you so much." As soon as she finished her duties in the kitchen, Elizabeth rushed back to the boys' quarters, her slippers making soft slaps against the concrete floor. "Henry, Henry," she called, nearly bursting with excitement. He came out, slightly alarmed. "What is it? Why are you shouting like that?" "Henry, you won't believe what just happened." She beamed, unable to stop smiling. "Mrs. Jacob said I should become her new cook. She said she'll be paying me monthly." "Wait, seriously?" Henry's eyes widened in shock. "Yes, and I also told her that I want to go to university, and she was so happy about it." Henry pulled her into a warm hug. "That's my wife, my world-class wife." Elizabeth laughed, cheeks pink. "Ah, Henry, don't start." "No, I mean it," he said, holding her hands tightly. "You've come such a long way, from the village to the city, from tears to smiles, from rejection to celebration." She nodded, her smile soft. "It feels like a dream, and the best part," Henry added, "is that the dream is just beginning." That night, after dinner, Elizabeth and Henry lay side by side on their modest bed, staring at the ceiling. The day had been long, but it glowed in their memories like a lantern in the dark. Elizabeth couldn't sleep. Her mind was overflowing. After a long silence, she turned to Henry. "Henry," she whispered. "Yes?" he replied, his gaze still fixed upward. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said, turning toward her. Elizabeth hesitated, then took a breath. Why haven't you? You know, touched me since I came here? Henry blinked. He wasn't expecting that. I mean, we're married, Elizabeth continued softly. If it were another man, he would have, maybe even the first night. Henry sat up slowly and leaned against the wall, his voice calm and steady. You're right, Elizabeth. Many men would have done that. But I'm not just any man. I didn't bring you here to use you. I brought you here to love you, to care for you, to protect you. He paused, choosing his words with care. You've already been through so much. I still see pain in your eyes, even when you smile. I don't want to add to that. Elizabeth's eyes began to water again, but this time the tears came from a different place. Henry continued, I want you to be ready. I want you to want me, not just accept me. When your heart is healed, when it says yes, not out of fear or pressure, but out of love, then I'll be ready too. He held her hand gently. I know you've never been with any man. You've carried shame, rejection, and fear for so long. That night, when your father gave you away like you were nothing, it broke something inside you. Elizabeth lowered her gaze, heart thudding. But listen to me, Henry said firmly. You are not nothing. You are everything. You are strong. You are special. And when the time comes, I want our love to be free, not forced. Tears rolled down Elizabeth's cheeks. She had never heard words like that in her life. You really mean all this? She asked, her voice trembling. I do, he replied. I want this marriage to be built on love, not fear. I want you to feel safe with me. Elizabeth wiped her tears, smiling softly. Thank you, Henry. You've changed my life. I used to think all men were like my father, but you're different. Henry leaned over and kissed her forehead gently. Sleep well, my queen. That night, for the first time, Elizabeth felt truly safe in the arms of a man, not just a husband, but a friend. Just 2 days into her job as a cook in the main house, something unexpected happened. That morning, Elizabeth was preparing Mrs. Jacobs' favorite vegetable soup. She had just finished slicing the ugu leaves when the kitchen door creaked open. She turned and froze. A tall, fair-skinned young man stood at the door, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. Then, he smiled. Damn, you are so beautiful, he said. Elizabeth stood still, shocked. My mum told me about you, the man said, walking slowly into the kitchen. She said you were smart, humble, and beautiful. But I thought she was just exaggerating. Now I see she was even understating it. He leaned on the kitchen counter and scanned her from head to toe. Wow, girl, you are so fine. God must have created you on a Sunday morning. He took his time. Elizabeth felt uneasy. She looked down and focused on her chopping board. Good afternoon, sir, she said quietly, hoping he'd leave. David laughed. Come on. Don't call me sir. I'm just a small boy. Call me David. Elizabeth shook her head. No, sir. I can't. It's not proper. He grinned. You're so polite. I like that. She didn't respond and continued cooking in silence. After a while, David walked out, still smiling. That evening, when Elizabeth returned to the boys' quarters, Henry was waiting on a wooden bench outside. Welcome, my queen, he greeted cheerfully. How was work? Elizabeth sat beside him, looking troubled. Henry, something happened today. He turned sharply. What is it? Are you okay? I'm fine, but your madam's son, David. He came into the kitchen. Henry listened carefully. He said things that made me uncomfortable. Elizabeth explained. He said I'm beautiful, that God created me specially. He told me to stop calling him the sir. I didn't like the way he looked at me like I was meat. Henry frowned slightly, then gave a small, forced smile. Ah, that David. He's a funny guy. That's how he talks. Henry, she said quietly. I didn't like it. Something about him doesn't feel right. Henry reached for her hand. It's okay, my beautiful wife. Don't let it get to you. David's harmless. He just likes talking. But if he ever crosses the line, tell me. I'll always protect you. She nodded slowly. Okay, if you say so. He kissed her forehead. You're safe with me. Always. But deep inside, Elizabeth couldn't shake the unease. Something in David's eyes haunted her. Something dark and selfish. A few days later, it happened again. Elizabeth was in the kitchen, preparing lunch. She didn't realize someone had been watching her silently from the corridor. David. He stepped into the kitchen casually and leaned on the doorframe. There's something special about the way you cook, he said with a sly smile. Elizabeth turned, startled. Good afternoon, sir. He ignored the greeting. Elizabeth, I won't waste your time, he said, walking closer. I like you. You're beautiful, smart, hardworking. I'm not just saying that. I want you to be my girl. Elizabeth blinked, stunned. Sir, I'll change your life. David interrupted. I'll send you to school, not just here, abroad. London, Canada, anywhere. I'll buy you a new phone, designer clothes, everything. You won't struggle again. He stepped even closer, voice low. You're wasting time with that poor security man. What's he doing for you? Nothing. I could sack him today, or pay him off. Just say yes. Elizabeth took a slow step back. With all due respect, sir, she said firmly, I am not interested. David's face changed. What? I am focused on my marriage, my work, and my dream to go to school, she said clearly. I will not throw that away for quick pleasure or empty promises. David burst into loud, mocking laughter, his voice echoing across the tiled kitchen walls of the Lagos mansion. Marriage? Don't tell me you're calling that thing with Henry a marriage, he sneered, his cologne filling the air like poison. You should be ashamed of yourself. A girl like you, young, smart, beautiful, wasting your life with a broke security guard? At your age, you should be in university, or at least dating someone like me. Elizabeth didn't flinch. She stood her ground like the daughter of a lioness, her eyes calm but fierce. I am not ashamed, she said clearly. I'm proud of my husband. Henry treats me with respect and love. He doesn't have much now, but I know one day, God will answer his prayers and bless him. David scoffed, flipping his car keys in his hand arrogantly. You're dreaming, girl. She met his gaze boldly. I'd rather dream with a man who truly loves me than live in a fake world with someone who only wants to use me. His smirk faded. You'll regret this. No, sir, she replied, lifting her chin. If standing by the man who stood by me is a mistake, then I will gladly make it, over and over again. David stared at her for a moment, then stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind him. Elizabeth exhaled slowly. Her hands trembled, but her heart was steady. Later that evening, she returned to the small boys' quarters behind the compound. Henry looked up from where he was folding his work uniform. My queen, you're quiet today. Are you okay? He asked gently. Elizabeth nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. Tears welled up quietly. David came to me again, she said, her voice shaking. This time he made bigger promises: school abroad, money, clothes, a new life, but only if I agreed to be his girl. Henry stood slowly, fists tightening at his sides. She continued before he could speak. He said he'd even pay you off, or tell your madam to sack you, just so he can have me. Henry's jaw clenched, his eyes darkened with anger, but when he saw her face, his anger melted. What did you tell him? He asked softly. I told him no. I told him I'm not interested. I told him I believe in you, in us. I know one day, God will bless you. Henry pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for standing by me. She smiled through a tear. You stood by me first. Now it's my turn. That night, they knelt on their tiny rug and prayed together, asking God for strength, for peace, and for a future they could call their own. The next morning, Elizabeth rose early, but her heart was heavy. David's words kept echoing in her mind. She had tried to endure it, to smile through it, but she was done pretending. She walked straight to the main house and knocked. Mrs. Jacob, David's mother, opened the door. Elizabeth, my daughter, good morning. Hope you slept well? Elizabeth didn't smile. Good morning, Ma, she replied, eyes low. Mrs. Jacob's smile faded. What's wrong? My dear, Ma, please don't be angry. I came to talk to you. Mrs. Jacob stepped aside. Come in. Come in. What is it? Elizabeth took a deep breath. It's about your son, David. Mrs. Jacob looked surprised. David? What about him? Elizabeth's voice was calm but firm. He's been disturbing me, promising me money, offering to send me abroad, on one condition, that I leave my husband and be with him. Mrs. Jacob's mouth opened slightly. He said that? He even said he'd pay off Henry or make sure he gets sacked, just so he can have me. Silence. Elizabeth continued, her voice shaking. Ma, I respect you. I respect this house, but I cannot keep quiet anymore. Mrs. Jacob leaned back slowly, folding her arms. After a long pause, she spoke. Elizabeth, you're a beautiful and wise girl. You deserve a better life. Maybe my son just sees your potential. Maybe you should consider his offer. Elizabeth's eyes widened. Ma, I'm not saying you should leave your husband carelessly, Mrs. Jacob said quickly, but think about it. We can give you education, comfort, a new life. Even your husband can benefit. We can pay him to walk away. Elizabeth stood slowly. Her hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. With all due respect, Ma, I am not that kind of woman. Mrs. Jacob looked stunned. I didn't marry Henry because of money, Elizabeth continued. I married him because when my own father gave me away like a bag of yam, Henry gave me dignity. When the world turned its back on me, he held my hand. Tears filled her eyes. Ma, I would rather quit this job than stay in a house where I am disrespected. If David doesn't stop, we will leave this compound. She turned and walked out, wiping her tears. Her heart burned with hurt, but also with clarity. How could a woman she respected try to buy her like a loaf of aged bread? How could love mean so little to people? But as she entered the boys' quarters, she stopped in her tracks. Bundles of money, neatly stacked, lay on the table. Henry, what's going on? Where did you get all this money from? Henry stood from the bed slowly. My love, come and sit. She sat, still staring at the money. I've been saving this little by little since I got to Lagos, he said. My dream is to start a food business. Small booker, but today, after what you did, after how you stood up for us. I realized something. He pointed to the money. This is not just mine. I want you to use it for your education. I know that's your dream. Elizabeth gasped. No, Henry, never. I'm serious. Love, go to school. Fulfill your dream. I'll be fine. She stood. And I'm serious too. This is your dream. Henry, you saved this with sweat and suffering. You wanted to build something for us. He looked confused. So, what do we do? She stepped closer, tears in her eyes. Let's start your business. Rent a small room. We'll run it together. When it grows, I'll go to school, one step at a time. But we leave this place. Henry looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You want us to leave this compound? Yes, she said. I don't want to live in a place where our love is insulted daily. We deserve better. Even if it's small, let it be ours. He took her hand and shook his head in awe. Elizabeth, you are not just beautiful. You are wise. You are the answer to every prayer I've prayed. She smiled through her tears. And you're the only man I want. He pulled her close, and in that tiny room in the back of a big house, two people with nothing except love and faith started building everything they needed. His eyes, now watery too, met hers. Thank you for standing by me, he said softly. I will always stand by you, she whispered. Elizabeth whispered, our better days are coming. Henry smiled and replied, yes, my queen, step by step, we'll get there. Together. The next morning, Elizabeth woke up early. She swept the floor, wiped down the windows, and cleaned every corner of their tiny room. But her heart remained heavy. The memory of her conversation with Mrs. Jacob the day before haunted her. She replayed David's harsh behavior, the surprising offer, and her bold refusal. She sighed deeply and sat down to rest her back when suddenly, knock knock, someone was at the door. She opened it and froze in surprise. Standing there were Mrs. Jacob and David, both with solemn expressions. Good morning, my daughter, Mrs. Jacob greeted, her voice gentler than Elizabeth had ever heard. David added, please, Elizabeth. We came to apologize. Elizabeth hesitated, then stepped aside. She didn't say a word as they walked in. Mrs. Jacob sat first and looked at Elizabeth with warm, almost motherly eyes. We are so sorry, she said quietly, for everything, for what David said, for what I said too. We were wrong, terribly wrong. David lowered his head like a humble child. I was foolish. I allowed pride and ego to blind me. But I see clearly now. Henry is lucky to have you. You're a real wife. Mrs. Jacob nodded in agreement. Yes, my dear. You're special. Women like you are not easy to find these days. Most people chase wealth and status. But you stood by him when he had nothing. Elizabeth's eyes softened. She didn't speak. She just listened. We called you our wife yesterday, Mrs. Jacob continued, a soft smile playing on her lips. And we meant it. You are our wife. Elizabeth finally smiled faintly. Thank you, Ma. I'm not angry anymore. I forgive you. Mrs. Jacob smiled even more, but then leaned forward and said something strange. You are my son's wife. Elizabeth frowned. Your son? Mrs. Jacob smiled mysteriously. Don't worry, my dear. You will understand soon. After a few more minutes, they both rose, hugged her, and left. Elizabeth stood at the door, dazed. What did she mean? Your son? Later that evening, Henry returned. He looked tired, but unusually happy. Elizabeth turned sharply. Where did you go since morning? I've been waiting. He walked toward her with calm eyes. My love, he said softly. There's something I need to tell you. Elizabeth folded her arms. What now? Henry gently held her hands and looked into her eyes. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. Her brows furrowed. Sorry for what? He took a deep breath. For lying to you. Her face stiffened. Lying? About what exactly? He sat down, visibly nervous. David, he's not just the landlady's son. He's my younger brother. And Mrs. Jacob, she's not my boss. She's my mother. Elizabeth gasped. Henry, you mean, all this while? He nodded slowly. Yes, I didn't plan to lie for long. I needed to know if someone could love me, and not my money, not my background. Just me. He looked away, guilt wrapping around his words. I've been heartbroken before. Too many times. Women pretended to love me, but they only wanted my wealth. They left when I stopped spoiling them. Elizabeth sat, stunned. You went far. Henry, you shouldn't have done that. I know, he whispered. You have every right to be angry. Please, forgive me. There was silence. Then Elizabeth smiled mischievously. Okay, fine. I forgive you, but you owe me. He chuckled. What do I owe you now? She leaned forward. A car and a mansion. For lying to me. Henry laughed deeply. That's nothing, my queen. Consider it done. They both laughed as she jumped into his arms. I love you so much, Henry, she said, holding him close. And I love you even more. Dr. Elizabeth to be, he teased, deeply and truthfully. There was no more hiding, no more pretending. The truth had set them free. Word spread fast. The poor security man everyone mocked turned out to be a billionaire's son, a billionaire himself. When Elizabeth's father heard the news in their dusty hometown, he nearly choked on his palm wine. His eyes bulged in disbelief. He scrambled to call her, "My daughter, please forgive me," he said, suddenly humble. "I was blind. I didn't know God had blessed you like this." Elizabeth was quiet for a moment, then replied calmly, "I forgive you, sir, but I want to stay far away from you and your wicked wife. I suffered too much in your house." Her voice sharpened. "If there's anything serious, you can call me, but please don't call me for nonsense. And take care of your miserable wife." She hung up. Then, looking upward, she whispered, "Thank you, my only God, for bringing Henry into my life." Years later, the girl who was once mocked in dirty clothes now wore a white coat as she walked proudly across the stage, a qualified medical doctor. The crowd roared, but the loudest voice came from Henry. "That's my wife. Come here, you beautiful big woman." After the ceremony, he wrapped her in a warm embrace. "I'm so proud of you. Baby, you're mine forever." She smiled through tears. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for standing by me. You are the world's best husband. And you," he said, "are my forever queen." One peaceful afternoon, Henry took Elizabeth on a quiet drive. They entered a lush estate in Lekki and stopped in front of a magnificent white mansion with gold-tipped gates. Elizabeth looked around, confused. "Why are we here?" she asked. Henry smiled and handed her a bunch of keys. "This is your mansion, my queen." Elizabeth screamed in shock. "Henry, stop playing. I'm serious. I promised you a car and a mansion. Here they are." She hugged him, laughing and crying at once. "Wait," she said, stepping back. "I also have good news." "What is it?" he asked, eyes twinkling. "I went for a test last week. I'm 3 months pregnant." Henry stood frozen, then shouted, "Elizabeth, are you serious?" She nodded, laughing. "We're going to have a baby." He lifted her off the ground and spun her around with pure joy. "God, thank you," he said, then knelt down and kissed her belly. "My baby, Daddy loves you already." Elizabeth smiled through joyful tears. "From being rejected to becoming royalty," she said. "Truly, my name is Elizabeth." Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic Nigerian folktale? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable tales. Till next time, stay inspired, stay blessed.